We're back live again, dear friends and fans. I'm sorry for this, but we have an uploading stream of less than 2 megabytes because I wanted to do this from Mr. Panagides' house. So bear with us. The whole recording will be live for you to watch at the Michael Virardi Facebook fan page. So feel free. Mr. Panagides, we were saying about your health, and you just answered that. Let me say a few other things. Can you tell us about, because you're a man of many crafts, I can see here a fan that is working with computer spare parts that I have found out that you assembled it yourself. Yes. I have seen a garden in your roof garden which takes 18 or 20 steps to get up there, which you are the person who responsible for it, who planted the plants and the vegetables. Talk to us about all these crafts. Where did you learn all these crafts?
Well, that's an interesting question, Michael. My father was an enlightened educator, but he believed that formal education killed the creativity of the young people. For this reason, he did not send me to the elementary school, and for 4 years I had homeschooling. I had a private tutor coming 3 times every week for a couple of hours, teaching me privately, and my thinking, my creativity, I attribute to this homeschooling which my father had. And after I graduated the gymnasium high school, the Greek high school of Limassol at that time, Ελληνικών Gymnasium Lemessou.
Yes.
My father did not send me to the university, but instead he made me learn various crafts. So I spent 2-3 months learning to be a mechanic, another 2-3 months learning carpentry and how to make furniture, another 2-3 months doing metal work and building. So until now I have this interest in doing things with my hand. And later, when I was at Iowa State, I met Ivan Illich, an educator who had run his own school, and I was in Mexico, I think he was, in New Mexico, and I was very impressed because he believed in the same philosophy, that actually there was a lot of discussion at that time by someone who wrote a book, Murder in the Classroom, that many murders take place in the classroom because formal education kills the creativity of young people and creates people thinking in the box, as we say. And this Illich said, I would never allow a student to graduate with a PhD or a master's or any higher diploma from my school if he or she could not change the spare of a car.
So he or she, Illich wanted people to have to know about crafts, to have a talent, to have a skill at the end of the day.
Must combine the intellectual, the mental capabilities with our physical work.
We have many comments from fans and friends coming in. If you are so kind, please, dear friends, to send your comments onto the second video that we uploaded now, the live streaming video. We have comments coming from Stathis, who says he's very proud to meet Stathis Panagides' father. We have comments coming from my own wife, who never tuned in a live streaming, Christine, who says that what an honor to have Mr. Panagides. And we also have comments from Nadia Themis. Nadia, if you can copy-paste your comment once again into the second video, I will appreciate it a lot. And Richard Pettinger, the head of the business school of UCL, University College London, a dear friend and a person I truly admire, a person I've seen lecturing, and we lecture together as well, has just tuned in from London to watch this.
Thank you very much, Professor.
You were one of the first parliamentarians in Cyprus in the 1960s. What was your relationship with the political figures at the time, Makarios, Klerides, Ezekias Papaioannou, or Lyssarides, and also, as well as with the Turkish-Cypriots, who, if I'm not mistaken, had members in parliament representing them?
Now, you step in a field which they advise, if you want to keep your friends, try not to discuss politics, religion, or sex. Now you want us to discuss politics. Yes, I did get involved in politics. I was elected a member of the first parliament after in 1960, when Cyprus became an independent republic. And for the first 3 years, we had 15 members representing the Turkish community in the parliament. And I had some very good friends, Turkish friends. During that time, one of my very special friends was Stathis Panagides. We traveled together. He was a trade union activist, and we traveled together to Moscow to attend an international youth forum. And we became very good friends. We were, our picture appeared together on the front page of the Izvestia newspaper, which is a leading daily of the years of the Soviet Union. And we wanted to send the message that there is Greeks and Turks, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots could and should live together, side by side, working together, thinking together, and creating together. Now, the agreements, as you remember, politically collapsed after 3 years, and we got into the mess which we were still in. But 3 years later, I visited Makarios, the president at that time of Cyprus, and I submitted my resignation. I found that I could not go along with the nationalistic policies and other choices, political choices, which we, as a Greek community, followed at that time. And I went to the States to pursue higher education at the age of 37, and with 3 children growing and 1 on the way. Now, yes, I did have close contacts and close cooperation with Makarios, with Klerides, with all the key players. Even where you're sitting here, Michael, General Grivas himself, at one time during the Oka struggle for independence, he spent 3 years.
3 years in here?
In
these
3 months.
3 months.
In my house here, guiding the underground struggle for independence. From here, we are talking now.
That must have been quite an experience, huh?
It was quite an experience. Now, as a result, of course, of my involvement with the struggle, I ended up doing 33 months as a political detainee in the Pila detention camp, and later on at the Kokinikia detention camp. And that was a turning point in my life. I met many people, and one of my closest friends in detention, sleeping next to me, was Makarios, the person who fought and died in Lyssarides, in his struggle of Lyssarides. And before he escaped from detention, he asked me if I survived this struggle. He asked me to go to Avgoru village to meet his wife and his children and to give them a message. And on the way to Avgoru, and at that time there was no development, no tourists, no highways, it was just Kokinokoria, potato fields and gravel roads. And I got lost on the way, and I met a shepherd reading a book. I approached him and I said, Papu, I was very young, Papu, I said, Grandpa, can you show me the way to Argoro? He stopped reading his book and he said, young man, you seem to be an educated young person coming from the town. Can I ask you a question? I said, what question? He said, if we suppose that instead of Makarios, the president of Cyprus was Jesus Christ himself, would he take a gun to drive the British out?
Wow.
And this question changed my life. This is a turning point in my life because I became a Christian pacifist. I denounced violence of any form. A few years later, together with a friend from the UK, Roy Calvocoresi, we established CHIPS, the Christian International Peace Service, with projects in Africa, in Cyprus first, and in other spots in the world where there is conflict, in interracial or interreligious or any form of. And the CHIPS is doing fine until now, and I am on the board of international trustees.
Unbelievable story.
Christian International Peace Service. You can also visit it on the internet.
On the internet.
As CHIPS.
I got a letter from your brother Stathis, who's in the United States, and he says the following. This is what you wrote to him. I was invited in 1956 to be the guest of Her Majesty the Queen at her government's expense in cell 337 in Kokinotrimitia. You were the guest there for 33 months. A couple of years ago, my brother was invited to London for her birthday. Is that true?
This is very true.
But you felt her guest?
Yes. Well, I spent 33 months as the guest of Her Majesty's. And yes, a couple of years ago, I was invited to Her Majesty's birthday. And I learned from some sources there that the two seats behind me were reserved for members of the intelligence service, just in case.
At this age, huh?
I don't know.
Excellent. Can I change the subject and move on to Iowa State University? You first went there, I don't know, as a student, if I understand correctly, and then as a teaching research assistant. Can you share with us some stories from Iowa State University? What got you there, as you said before,
Well,
and some of inspiring stories?
As a member of the Cyprus Parliament, I was invited by the US government on a Fulbright. That was the beginning of the Fulbright program, exchange program. There were various scholarships, exchange of political leaders, and so on. And I was invited to spend a month in the United States to see what was my major interest, agriculture. The latest agricultural technology. And of course the Midwest, Iowa, the state of Iowa, is one of the bread baskets, not only of the United States but of the world. It's a major agricultural state, and Iowa State University is internationally known as an agricultural university, among many others, of course. But so my brother was a student there, and my visit included a stopover at Iowa State. Out of curiosity, and because I never attended a higher school or a university school, I decided to sit in just to get a flavor of what it's all about. What do they talk about in universities? And my brother, who overestimated my capabilities, I only knew mathematics, high school mathematics, simple algebraic equations, and he put me in a class where there were differential equations and exponential evacuations and all these things, and I was scared. But then I was lucky enough to meet a professor who was an international authority in agricultural development, rural development, and he was a consultant to the USAID in Peru and in Vietnam and in other countries. So he encouraged me to sit in as a special student. And I did enroll as a special student with the aim of spending 1 or 2 months just to get some
experience and knowledge. Yeah.
And finally, I got hooked. I enrolled as a regular student, and I pursued 10 years of education at Iowa State. I completed my bachelor's degree in political science, sociology, and anthropology. I moved on to the master's degree in irrigation, engineering, and regional development. And I went on and I completed my doctoral studies, short of getting my diploma, because the invasion of Cyprus by Turkey forced me to come here without staying for the graduation ceremony. And I had some interesting experiences. I was 37 years at that time, and I was an oddity, because back in the early 60s, Cyprus was very little known, and I was among young kids from high school who came to pursue university education.
And you had a family, you had children and a pregnant wife.
Children and wife and so on. And I was rather skeptical sitting there among all these young students, and a young person with a small, well-trimmed beard approached me, and he talked to me. He said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I said, "I am Dafnis Panagides from Cyprus." I tried to figure out Cyprus, or is there such a place as Cyprus? I tried to explain to him that we are a small island in the eastern Mediterranean and so on. And they said, "What is your major?" You know, Michael, you have to declare in American...
What you are majoring in, yes.
You're majoring in engineering or agriculture. I don't know, spontaneously I told him, I am majoring in learning.
Wow, I am majoring in learning.
I'm majoring in learning. He jumped on me, he embraced me, he said, "Come to my office." And I followed him to his office. He was the newly appointed head of the philosophy department, Richard Van Eyden. We became very close friends, to the extent that 2-3 years later, when my daughter Dora sat in one of his classes and he read the list of students, he came down, he said, "Dora Panagides." He stopped, he said, "Who are you? Stand up." And Dora stood up. He said, "Do you have any relationship with Dafnis Panagides?" He said, "Yes, he's my dad." "You're daughter of Dafnis?" "Yes." And they became friends also.
Wow.
And this friendship continues until now. Of course, we have many experiences.
We just wanted to share one or two just for our fans and friends to know.
Yes.
Dear friends and fans, if you want to meet this interesting, wise person, if you want to be in close proximity to Mr. Dafnis Panagides, just share this episode, and 2 winners will be getting a chance to spend 1 hour with Mr. Dafnis Panagides here at his home. You only have to share it, and then if you are the winners, you can get in touch with my personal assistant, Marina Diplaru, and she will arrange the date and the time. Also, I have to say, Mr. Panagides, that we're getting comments from Marina Constantinou from Nicosia, such a wise person. Excellent, thanks for this opportunity. She's talking about you. Bienho, who has cooked here today, says good afternoon. Good afternoon, Bienho. We had a great
thank you,
time.
Thank you.
Nadia Themis says, "Salute to you, gentlemen. Honor watching Mr. Panagides sharing with us his amazing experience." And she has 3 questions for you, but we will have them in a while. And Stathis says, "What an honor to listen to the father of my friends and my mentor."
Thank you. Thank you, my friends.
Mr. Panagides, next question, sir. You were the manager at Fasouri Plantation. Whilst we had a meeting with your son and yourself, you told me that you were the person responsible for having kiwi the passion fruit or the fruit of
Well, I
imported in Cyprus for the first time. Can you talk to us about being the manager at Fasouri Plantation? You were also a freelancer. What is the difference between being a freelancer and a manager at a big company? What are the pros and cons?
One of the reasons I was motivated to come to leave the academic world and come to Cyprus was when the then ambassador of Cyprus to the United States, Nikos Dimitriou, God bless his soul, he passed away a few years ago, he convinced me to come to Cyprus to become the manager of the largest commercial plantation, citrus plantation in Cyprus, because most of our orchards were already in Famagusta and Morphou were already taken by the invading Turkish troops. So he wanted me to come and reorganize the plantation, and I came and I became the general manager. The Fasouri Plantations at that time was a very big employer. During the grape harvesting season, we had close to 2,000 employees.
Unbelievable for the time.
And because the chairman of the board was also a refugee himself from Kyrenia, he wanted us to employ as many refugees as we could, just to give them employment. So we hired a lot of, and it's interesting that one of the things that this chairman of the board, he passed away, and a few years ago, he made a lot of money in Africa, growing sisal and exporting sisal. But he invested this money in the north, in Kyrenia, in real estate, hotels, and so on. And naturally, he became a refugee, and he came to live with me on the plantation in Fasouri. So, at one occasion, he asked me how much money I lost myself because of the Turkish invasion. And I smiled and I said, nothing. I lost nothing, simply because all the money I had, I invested between my 2 ears in the 2 square inches.
Wow.
This investment I shall take with me. No Turks, no Chinese, no Russians, nobody will take it away. Only God will take away this investment. And he was so impressed, and he said, where have you been so many years and you did not give me this advice before? And yes, my investment was, and I believe that that is the best investment, and that is what I try to do with my children also.
If I may ask, what was your salary there, working there?
They told me it was one of the 3 highest salaries in Cyprus at that time.
They offered you exactly what you wanted? Well, how did it go?
Well,
or you went into a negotiation at the time?
They interviewed me for more than 1 hour, and they mentioned nothing about my salary. And I started worrying myself. I said, now I left my family in the States and I came here, then I go back, and my wife will say, well, what will you be getting any salary here? What are your fringe benefits? So I reluctantly asked the chairman of the board, I said, can you tell me what is the salary that you have in mind? He smiled and he said, you decide. You decide. We are not the ones to decide your salary. Any amount you want, we give to you, under one condition.
What was the condition?
What the condition is that whatever you take from the company, you must generate and give it back, plus a small profit. That was the advice
Unbelievable.
he gave me. And of course, the Fasouri was another big experience for me, because of 2 things. The chairman, as I told him at the board meeting, 2 words were missing from his vocabulary. The word union and the word overtime. There was no union, there were no unions in Africa and no overtime. He used to say from dawn to sunset they used to work for a piece of bread or something. And there we had to deal with the most powerful trade union of Peon. I had to negotiate, and it was difficult, but fortunately we were able to handle the very difficult negotiations. Interestingly enough, the chairman's argument was that when I said, but Mr. Chairman, how can I tell them we cannot afford to give any salary increases because we make profit, close to £1 million every year, pounds. He said, we don't make profit, we lose money. But they know the accounts because they work there and they follow the books. We lose money because we should have made more profit, but now instead of making X, we made less, and this is a loss.
So
loss from the profit. That was it. Anyway, this was a harmonious relationship with the trade unions, a peace in the company for as long as I was there, and we were able to introduce some major
breakthroughs,
innovations like computers,